Aristotenes. This is so exciting. Aristotenes was this dude, right? He um was able to calculate the curvature of the earth, right? And he did it by he in Syene, at 12, I'm assuming it's 12 noon, there was no shadows over these buildings. And there was no shadows over the buildings at the time. But I believe it's 800 kilometers later in Alexandria, those buildings had shadows, like at the same time. So, it's at the same time. They had communications, whatever. I'm not even going to talk about that. They had methods of communications. So, he was able to know the distance between the two buildings, and then he was able to um, measure the angle in Alexandria versus the angle in Syene, which was no shadow, versus Alexandria, which was a shadow. And he was able to measure the angle of the Earth, and that's pretty much impossible unless the Earth is round. But then I realized, how far is the sun? Does the sun distance affect it? And I'm trying to think about all of this math and stuff in my head, and I was like, yo, Blender. I used to Blender for 3D modeling and a bunch of stuff. And let me build two sticks and make a sun versus a local light and see what happens. And that's math, right? That's the math everything's based off of, and blah, 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 blah. Possibly a little modified, but I'm not sure. But anyway, here's the test. And so I made this little thing in Blender, okay? Two spheres, and shadows seem to be similar to the same size. These are the exact same size. So you're copied and pasted them, so the shadows should be exactly the same. All right, so now I literally can, let me go to the camera, can literally mess with the sun as at the elevation. Yeah, and you can see how shadows work when the sun is elevated. Now the sun is going, you can see, hold on, I'm trying to get closer. Okay, sun's gone. Now the sun is coming back, and the shadows are same height, right? Same, they look to be the same elevation, so I'm going to go all the way up to 12 noon, okay? I'm going to go all the way up to 12 noon. Right now you can't, so I'm just going to go 90 degrees. It's 12 noon. You can't tell, but it's there. You see, that's 12 noon, so I'm going to go back to my camera. The sun's up there, and you can see that there's no shadows, okay? There is no shadows because the sun is at 12 noon, right? And, I could easily put these two guys on a sphere, and you would see that they would make shadows. But anyway, I could do that, but you'll see what I'm about to do. So I'm like, all right, that sun is very far away, right? I'm gonna put it back here. All right, that sun's really far away, right? Really far away, and light rays are coming in parallel. Blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, so that would make sense if the sun is assumed to be really far away. That, yeah, the only way to get curvature would be, or to get two shadows doing that at that distance would be, curve Earth, blah blah blah. That will only happen on curve Earth. But okay, let's say if the sun was local. So this is where it gets crazy. This is where it gets crazy. I turn off the sun. Okay, I'm going to turn on the local light. And this local light is directly above the one object. Okay, this local light, as you can see, the sun, or the light is right here. It's directly above that. And look, if the sun was local, oh my gosh, magic. And there's a shadow, as you can see. Is this math? Does this count? Alright, this one doesn't have a shadow. It does. It's not perfect. You know what I mean? But has a shadow-ish. But this one, oh my goodness, has a shadow. It's casting a shadow. So what they don't tell you is that with a local sun, those shadows make sense on the flat plane, you know? And that's very interesting. And then you have to look at Carl Sagan explain, here's this.
Eratosthenes asked himself how it could be that at the same moment a stick in Syene would cast no shadow and a stick in Alexandria, 800 kilometers to the north, would cast a very definite shadow. Here's a map of ancient Egypt. I've inserted two sticks or obelisks, one up here in Alexandria and one down here in Syene. Now, if at a certain moment each stick casts no shadow at all, that's perfectly easy to understand, provided the Earth is flat. If the shadow at Syene is at a certain length, and the shadow at Alexandria is the same length, that also makes sense on a flat Earth. But how could it be, Eratosthenes asked, that at the same instant there was no shadow at Syene and a very substantial shadow at Alexandria? The only answer was that the surface of the Earth is curved. Not only that, but the greater the curvature, the bigger the difference in the lengths of the shadows. The sun is so far away that its rays are parallel when they reach the Earth. Sticks at different angles to the sun's rays will cast shadows at different lengths.
What do you think?
For the observed difference in the shadow lengths.
How come they don't want to talk about this? You know? And let me drop the height on this thing, so we can see. I'm gonna do on the x-axis, or z-axis. I'm sorry. You see, as it drops, look what happens to the shadow. You know, look. Now, if the sun was super far away, keep going up. You see how the shadows are getting more close together? Okay, that's what they're saying. But the sun, when it's local, all of a sudden does that. Very strange, right? So, what is it, dude?